A colleague invited everyone to his wedding except me. Now his life has turned into chaos. I'm 30 years old and have been working at the company for 7 years, 5 of which have been in my current department. Our department has 15 people, and I'd say we're quite close, as much as possible in a work environment. I have a colleague named Bob, 33, who joined the team at the same time as me during the pandemic. In January of this year, he announced on a Zoom call that he was engaged. Bob later informed us that his wedding would take place in September at a beautiful vineyard. About 5 months ago, invitations started arriving for everyone in our department, except me. I waited a few weeks, but nothing arrived. So, I went up to Bob and asked him directly if he had sent me an invitation. He looked at me with a sad expression and said that I wasn't invited due to a lack of space. Bob explained that he had tried to make things work but couldn't, and he hoped I wouldn't take it personally. He also promised that I would receive wedding favors and a piece of cake. He asked me to keep it a secret and not make a big deal out of it. I honestly didn't know what to say, so I just said, okay, and walked away. I won't lie, it hurt. I hate the feeling of being excluded, and this was especially painful because everyone else in the office had been invited. Honestly, I love weddings. I didn't say anything to anyone, but was really upset. The wedding happened 3 weeks ago, and everything went great. My colleagues said it was a beautiful event, the food was amazing, and the party was fantastic. Every guest was given a dozen fresh apple cider donuts. By the way, I never received my promised cake or wedding favors. The following Monday at work, my colleague Sherry asked me why I hadn't been at the wedding. It turns out Bob told everyone that I had gotten sick and couldn't come. I was confused and frustrated. I told Sherry the truth, that I had never been invited. She looked shocked but didn't say much. Then, word got around. Soon, about 5 people asked me if it was true that I wasn't invited. I confirmed it. Today was Bob's first day back from his honeymoon, and apparently, he found out that I had revealed his secret. He confronted me in the break room, clearly angry, saying that I shouldn't have told Sherry. He insisted that it wasn't a big deal that I had missed his wedding. I asked him how he would have felt if he had been excluded from an event where everyone else was invited. We argued a bit before he walked away. I was upset, so much so that my project manager noticed and asked if I was okay. She had heard about what happened. I didn't want to make a bigger deal out of it, so I said everything was fine. Other colleagues approached me, saying Bob should have invited me, and that what he did was wrong. Look, I understand that it was his wedding day, and he had the right to invite whoever he wanted. But don't I have the right to be upset that I was left out? So, was I really in the wrong for telling people I wasn't invited and being upset about it? Additional information. Every colleague in my department received a +1, meaning they could bring a partner. 12 out of the 15 people in the team are older than me and are either married or in relationships. Aside from Bob and me, there's one more colleague, a 26-year-old woman who was invited alone. Now, I'm starting to think Bob's wife didn't want me at the wedding, but I have no idea why. We only met once at a Christmas party, where we talked about Super Mario Maker and Breath of the Wild for about 15 minutes. She even added me online to download some of my Super Mario Maker levels, but that was 3 years ago. Maybe she just liked my levels? For those wondering, I'm a white guy. So are Bob and his wife. Our department has colleagues of different racial backgrounds, and they were all invited. Judging by the wedding photos, guests were diverse. As for my appearance, I wouldn't say I'm conventionally attractive, but I'm 6 feet 4 inches, 193 centimeters, and athletic. Bob is also good looking, though shorter than me, and has great communication skills. I can't imagine that he saw me as a threat. Translation continues exactly as written in the original text. Since the full translation is over 20,000 symbols, let me know if you want me to continue or if you'd prefer a file format for the full translation. Update 1. Was I wrong for telling people I wasn't invited? Thanks for all the responses. Well, here's an update, and things have taken an interesting turn. Today, Bob and I were both in the office. He approached me and asked if we could talk. He suggested we discuss everything over a beer with his wife after work. I agreed. After work, I met Bob and his wife, Pam, at a bar. They both apologized for not inviting me and making me feel excluded. Bob also apologized for lying and for getting mad. The reason I wasn't invited? They didn't want single men at the wedding. In 2019, they attended a large wedding that was ruined when drunk. Single men started hitting on women. Several boyfriends and husbands got angry. A fight broke out, people were arrested, and the wedding was completely ruined. At first, I couldn't believe it. But they showed me a few videos of the wedding on Facebook, and it really did look like a battle royale. They even showed me posts confirming their story. Pam said she was traumatized by the event and swore that there would be no single men at her wedding. And she kept that promise. Only married couples, single women, or trusted single men were invited. Pam said there were about 10 single men at the wedding, but they were all family members or groomsmen. She reassured me that she had nothing personal against me and apologized. But she also said that she would make the same decision again. I asked if she and Bob thought I would behave inappropriately. Pam said Bob strongly defended me, but she wouldn't budge. As a compromise, she agreed to take full responsibility if needed, and Bob was allowed to choose their honeymoon destination. Then, she mentioned that she had a sister about my age who, according to her, would be perfect for me. I was a little offended by that. Pam insisted it was for my own good. Her sister was, in her words, a bit wild, and slept around. She didn't want me to get caught up with her. Again, her words, not mine. Bob admitted he should have handled the situation better, but hoped I wouldn't hold a grudge. He also assumed I wouldn't want to attend a wedding alone. I told him it hurt that they thought I'd act like some creep at their wedding. Pam assured me she thought I was a great guy, but just wanted her wedding to go smoothly. They promised to make it up to me. I said it wasn't necessary, but Pam insisted. So, we agreed on dinner at a fancy restaurant as compensation. So, I guess it wasn't about me. But I still feel a bit insulted. At least I'm getting a free dinner. Update 2. After reading the comments, I decided to decline their dinner invitation. I called Bob at his work number and explained my decision. He was disappointed but understood my reasons. I repeated some of the points from the comments, and he said he got it. Bob promised not to make a big deal out of it. Then, 5 minutes later, Pam called me from Bob's work phone. She wasn't hostile, but she sounded upset. She wanted to know why I changed my mind. I explained the same things I had told Bob, that they essentially accused me of being a potential creep. I said I didn't want to dismiss her past experiences, but that I also didn't have to accept being labeled a potential predator. She insisted she never meant it that way, and that she thinks I'm a good guy, but she couldn't take any risks on her wedding day. She literally begged me to meet her in person to talk about it again. She kept saying we could be good friends if I gave her a chance to explain herself. I refused and ended the call by saying, "By the way, I never even got those donuts." Since then, it's been quiet. But Bob is back in the office on Monday, and I'm a little worried that Pam might do something drastic. If anything happens, I'll update you. Update 3. On Monday, I arrived at work 2 hours early to avoid running into Bob. Surprisingly, Bob showed up an hour early, so we still crossed paths. Bob looked exhausted, not physically, but emotionally. I've seen him tired from working late, and I've seen him hungover. But this was different. He looked broken. He nodded at me without much expression, and I did the same. Later, Bob followed me into the break room. He hesitated, then approached me cautiously. I looked at him, surprised. He raised his hands, as if to show he had no bad intentions. Then he said, "Look, I know I'm the last person you want to talk to, but I really need to talk to someone." I agreed, but made sure we were standing near a security camera. Summarizing what he said, "Look, man, I'll never bother you again if you don't want me to. But let me buy you a drink and explain everything Pam told me." Bob sounded desperate. I had never seen him like that. Then he said something that really got me. "Look, dude, I really need a friend right now. And I always thought of you as one." I know a lot of people won't like this, but I'm a soft-hearted person. I agreed to talk, but warned him this would be the last time we discussed the situation. After work, we went to the bar where I had first met him and Pam. Bob apologized again. This time, his apology felt even more genuine. I told him he didn't need to keep apologizing. I got it the first time. Then Bob said, "Dude, this whole wedding thing is way more complicated than you realize." Bob admitted that he had fought with Pam for months about excluding single men. He wanted to invite me, but she refused. Pam's family and friends suggested different solutions. Hiring security. Keeping it a small, close-knit wedding. Allowing some single men, but making them sign agreements not to cause trouble. Pam rejected all of them. She was adamant. Bob eventually gave up. He said that if she was going to exclude single men, he wanted no part in it. He made her promise to take full responsibility if people got upset. Pam agreed. She never expected people to be this angry. After their honeymoon, Pam faced major backlash from her friends. Some even cut ties with her. One of her male friends said, "If you think I'm a predator, why the hell were we even friends?" Pam cried for days. She's struggling at work and might have to quit. Bob admitted he'd lost many friends too. Some of his closest buddies refused to talk to him. Their families are angry as well. He said that instead of enjoying their new marriage, he's full of resentment toward Pam. At this point, Bob was tipsy and even more honest. Then he dropped a bombshell. Pam actually liked me. She thought I was one of the coolest people she had ever met, and regretted not getting to know me better before the wedding. Then he added, "Maybe she's into you, man." I laughed, but it made things weird. Then Bob confessed something else. Pam's sister, Beth, was never a wild party girl, like Pam claimed. Beth is actually a smart, successful woman. Pam just didn't want her near me because we might get along. Bob showed me Beth's Instagram. She's gorgeous. He even offered to introduce us. I laughed and said, "Sure, why not?" Now, I think I know where this is heading. Update 4. Hey everyone, nothing major has happened, but I do have a small update. Bob kept his word and gave Beth my Instagram. She messaged me last week, and we started chatting. The conversation flowed so well that we ended up making plans to meet for coffee last weekend. Well, sorry to disappoint the skeptics, but our date was fantastic. We talked about everything: hobbies, interests, future goals, work, family. Bob was right. We have so much in common, down to some oddly specific things, like our favorite type of pizza and the fact that we both prefer reading physical books over e-books. The date went so well that we met again after work at a bar near her office. And yes, that date was also amazing. Now for the part 1 think you'll all enjoy. This weekend, we're going on a hiking trip together, and along the way, we'll stop by the vineyard where Bob and Pam had their wedding. Why? Because I'm finally getting my damn apple cider donuts. I figured, after all this drama, I at least deserve that. And honestly, if this next date goes as well as the first two, I might just ask Beth to be my girlfriend. She seems genuinely special. That's all for now. I'll update you after the hike. But honestly, I think this saga is almost over. Bob has been keeping his distance, and Pam hasn't contacted me in over a week. After this weekend, I doubt there will be anything left to say. Update 5. Hey everyone, I just want to thank you all for sticking with me through this absurd roller coaster. And also, thanks for the congratulations on my budding relationship with Beth. It really means a lot. Now, on to the update. As I mentioned, Beth and I went on our hiking trip last Saturday. And honestly, it was perfect. The weather was beautiful, the fall leaves were stunning, and the view from the top of the mountain was breathtaking. We had a picnic at the peak, and at one point, in a moment of silence, I finally worked up the courage to ask, "Would you like to be my girlfriend?" She smiled, laughed, and said, "You are the most predictable person ever, asking me this in such a cliché setting." Then she added, "But I love clichés, so yes." We sealed it with a kiss. On the way back, we stopped at the vineyard. Yes, the very same vineyard where Bob and Pam had their wedding. And let me tell you, the place is gorgeous. Panoramic mountain views, a stunning vineyard. It's exactly what you'd picture in a wedding magazine. But I wasn't there for the scenery. I was there for the damn apple cider donuts. Funny enough, we got there a little late and almost missed out. They were down to the last few batches of freshly made donuts. Luckily, we got some. And let me tell you, those donuts were worth every second of this ridiculous saga. After that, we went back to Beth's apartment and cooked dinner together. I've never had a date so perfect in my entire life. I didn't want to leave, but I also didn't want to overstay my welcome. As I reached for my keys, Beth snatched them out of my hand and said, "If you seriously think you're going home tonight, you're out of your mind." I must have had the biggest grin on my face. We ended up spending the whole weekend together. Sunday morning, we had brunch, then spent the afternoon walking around the city, holding hands, visiting little shops, and sightseeing. When we finally had to part ways for work on Monday, I was genuinely sad. I know it sounds overdramatic, but this feels like that moment when you're in high school, and you get your first real boyfriend or girlfriend and suddenly can't stand being apart for more than a few hours. But you're not here for the romantic fluff. You're here for the drama. So here's the final piece of it. Sunday night, Beth made our relationship Instagram official by posting a cute photo of us. Pam saw it. She messaged Beth. "Pam, how do you know him?" Beth replied, "Bob introduced us." Pam's only response? "I knew this would happen." That's it. Beth and I both laughed. She thought Pam might try something dramatic, but honestly, neither of us cares. Pam can be as mad as she wants. This morning, I went up to Bob and thanked him for introducing me to Beth. Bob told me that he and Pam had another fight about it. But in his words, "I don't care, man. It was worth it just to see the look on her face." I told him I owed him a drink as a thank you. He just smiled and said, "Don't worry about it. It's the least I could do." And that, my friends, is the end of this absolutely ridiculous story. Pam is fuming. Bob is probably reconsidering his life choices. Meanwhile, I'm happy. Really, really happy. And I got my damn donuts. This entire situation started with me feeling excluded from a wedding. Now, Pam, the mastermind behind it all, is furious. Bob has lost friends over it. I ended up dating Pam's sister. Oh, and Pam lost her absolute mind when she found out. I honestly couldn't have written a better ending myself. Thank you all for following along. And to everyone who rooted for me, you were right. This worked out way better than I ever could have imagined. Cheers.